Hello, and thank you for attending the BDR Insider session on Shadow AI, the hidden risk within your business. I'm here with Moses, who's going to go through a question and answer session later on. And if you have any questions as we go through this slide deck, please feel free to put them into the Q&A and we'll get answering when we get to that point. We're going to run through what is Shadow AI and is it already inside your business? And the answer is generally yes. What are the real risks to do with data compliance, liability, and culture? How do you detect and understand what your exposure is? How can we help you build a safe, structured AI adoption framework? What's the policies and governance that you need within your organization to make sure that your AI journey is successful? And then a Q&A with Moses, who is from Metacog AI, an AI specialist company. So to start off with, what is Shadow AI? So Shadow AI refers to artificial intelligence tools, applications, and automations used by employees without the knowledge or approval of the IT management or teams. So it's any AI within your business that you didn't have awareness of or didn't approve. Common examples of this are people using ChatGPT, people using Claude, people using DeepSeek, whatever it might be. They have their own personal accounts. It helps them operate, it helps them work, but you haven't necessarily approved those. 75% of all employees use AI tools for work. So 3/4 of your business are using AI. If you don't have an AI policy in place, if you don't have a preferred AI that you are rolling out to your employees, 3/4 of them are already using AI within your business. 52% of that usage goes completely unreported. So you have people within your business not talking about what they are performing and what they're using AI for. Of those, 38% have entered customer data into these AI tools without any understanding of the implications of this. AI is growing 3 times faster than approved AI adoption. So even if you do have a policy, you need to make sure that it is being followed within your business, because there are people who will always find the easiest way to work and operate. Why are they doing this? Well, really, it's speed and productivity. If they are not able to perform as well as their employees around them, then they will find a way of speeding up. If there's no approved alternative, there is not something that you have told them that they should be using, then they're just going to find out. They can use ChatGPT, they can use DeepSeek, they can use whatever it is that somebody's told them is capable of performing their roles. They're feeling the competitive pressure. Everyone is using AI. Everyone's talking about AI. It's all over the headlines. It's over the news. It's everywhere you go. So they feel the need to use it to stay in pace with the rest of the industry. There's a lack of awareness. Employees may not know that you have a policy, even if you have written a policy. How often is it earmarked? Is it being brought up in their PDPs, their PDRs? Are we having conversations about that with these employees so that they understand why you have governance, or if you don't have governance, why you can't use AI within the business? If you do have an overly rigid AI policy, people won't follow it, is the God's honest truth, because they want to achieve the maximum output. They want to be your most efficient employee, and that's the way which they can achieve this. When they see the visible results, it just cascades from there. Problem is the data and privacy risk. There's personally identifiable information being sent to external AI systems. Are those external AI systems part of your data protection? Have they been vetted by yourselves? Do you know where that data is being stored? Do you know how that data is being used? Is confidential IP and contracts being exposed? Do you have any control over how your data is being stored or used? And are you breaching GDPR or the data protection by your employees using these tools? So a good example of this is Samsung actually permitted their employees to use ChatGPT. Within 20 days, Samsung suffered 3 separate data leaks. Engineers pasted proprietary source code for semiconductors, equipment, and databases. which caused significant challenges for the business. At that point, they asked all of their employees to stop using ChatGPT and actually use a tool which protected their IP and their data. So the use of these tools can cause untold issues. And for Samsung, one of the largest organizations in this world, leaking their proprietary information means that all of their competitors have now got heads up just by using ChatGPT. From a compliancy perspective, if you're in a highly regulated sector or you deal with a lot of personally identifiable information, you are breaching ICO regulations and potentially can suffer fines due to the fact that you have lost control of your data. You are in breach of your duty of care over that information and over that data. So really, you can't audit trail what's happening because you've got no audit trail over these shadow AI outputs. There's the operational risk around inaccuracy. So how many of these employees are treating everything as read? Do they understand what an AI hallucination is? Do they understand that not every response is entirely accurate? And there's a reputational risk. If people find out that you are using AI in an uncontrolled way, or people are copying and pasting complete outputs from AI, including that little bit at the bottom and the top saying, yes, we've made this more professional for you. Please find the more professional version of the email below. It really starts to make you look like you are not capable of looking after that client's information. A typical scenario is that an employee wants to produce a proposal faster, so they just copy and paste all of the brief, the contact information, the project budgets, the strategic plans into a public AI chatbot. They get a great proposal, they've saved time, but now the client data is processed by a third-party system with their own data protection, which definitely will not be covered by yourselves. And at that point, you're in breach of GDPR, you're in breach of DPA, and potentially you have just caused issues when somebody searches, how much does company X charge for product Y? You've trained that large language model on this information. So how does it spread? Well, it generally spreads by one employee starting off by going, great, I'm using this tool, this is what it's doing, and this is how much time it's saving me at lunch. Then the employee sat next to them start to do the same. They use that tool, the word spreads, the adoption accelerates. IT has no visibility because they're just outputting what they want to output. You have a breach, you have an audit compliance issue, and at that point you discover that all of these employees were using AI tools unsanctioned within the business and not following the governance that they may or may not be aware actually had. So how do you detect it? So you can detect it using traditional network detection or DNS logs. You can do a SaaS spend review. Is it actually somebody within finance who's signed up to some of these services that you weren't aware of? Do a procurement review. Figure out, right, everyone in the business, who uses AI and what are you using? You can audit the browser extensions, you can perform a staff survey, or you can use your DLP tooling or SIEM solutions to try and detect these within your business and get an understanding of how widespread shadow AI is within your organization. So to build that safe AI adoption framework, you need to assess what works best for your business. What tools should you recommend? Map the data flows, map the sensitivity of the data, what data can be input into tools, what data can't be input to tools no matter what. Understand which AI features are right for your organization. Define the AI usage policy around what's permitted, what isn't. Establish an approval process for new AI tools so that people can submit to your organization their ideas around AI and things that they think might improve the overall output of the organization. Have ownership of that. Assign somebody within your organization to be that AI champion, that person who actually looks after the AI decision-making and the AI governance within your organization. Generally, the most technical person might not be the best, but the person who understands your data the most and how sensitive that is will definitely need to be on that steering group or that change authorization board. At that point, enable the employees to use these tools. Create a safe environment. Allow them to experiment and build these skills. AI can be the most powerful tool for your business if used in the correct way. If used in the incorrect way, it can be the end of your business. So this is either the equivalent of being strapped to a rocket and accelerating towards the moon or being dragged down into the mud. It just depends how you address this. So make sure that the staff are trained on this, understand what responsible AI usage looks like, and that they are literate in what AI is capable of achieving. Make sure that your policy includes permitted use cases. That's data classification. To do the data classification, understand what data you have, where it's stored, who is the owner of that data, and really understand that side of things. AI will use your data as it sees your data. If you don't have clean data, if you have jumbled or messy data, you're going to get jumbled or messy outputs. It is not the silver bullet. Make sure that people understand prohibited actions, that they have incident reporting to say, this happened, this is why, and this is what we're going to do to prevent it from happening again. Make sure you've got that approved tool register so people know what's safe to use, what's not safe to use. We recommend reviewing at least every 6 months, quarterly if possible. AI moves at such a rapid pace that every week a new AI model is released. Make sure that there's an approval process, that you've got a change authorization board or a board of AI governance that can actually sign these things off that understand your fundamental business. And be clear about the consequences of not following this. If people consistently are not following these policies, there has to be consequences, otherwise it won't be maintained. So the human side, what do we need to train them on? Well, we need to train them on the awareness, train them why you're putting these policies in place, why it isn't safe to use the free version of ChatGPT and what the data governance rules are around that. Give them the skills to use it effectively. There's so many people I've seen the rollouts of Copilot, of Claude, of all of the AI tools, and they buy them all the tools, but they haven't trained the employees how to use them whatsoever. So there's no real efficiency or productivity increase or gain from rolling out the AI tools if you don't teach your employees how to use them for your business appropriately. Make sure that you're building that open culture. Encourage employees to flag AI tools and make sure that they're not hiding them. Reward them for good governance, for good productivity, for good ideas within your business. Leadership must be seen to be using AI in a responsible way as well. So make sure that you are not breaching your own guidelines and causing your own challenges. So we'll be sharing these slides afterwards. This is kind of our 7 steps to the correct AI adoption from our perspective. Is conduct that AI audit, classify your data, write that policy, establish the approval process, deploy approved alternatives to the shadow AI that's being used within your business, train your employees on those AI tools, and monitor and evolve this as things go on. You can circle that to make this an eternal loop and make sure that it's just being followed continuously. Good AI governance means that you've got that approved AI toolkit, you're handling the data correctly, you've got that full audit trail, it's consistent, there's real-time monitoring and rapid responses, and you've got a good defensible governance posture. Without governance, as you can see, it's not going to go well particularly. Our key takeaways are shadow AI is already in your business. 75% of your employees are already using AI. If you don't have an AI policy or an approved AI tool, you've still got AI within your business. And it's probably shadow AI. The risks are real. You can end up in a compliance issue. You can end up being sued. You can end up in breach of GDPR. The answer is not to ban AI. Banning AI is not going to get your company to the forefront of its field or help with the efficiency in comparison to your competitors. Your culture matters just as much as the technology. Employees need to understand why, that it needs to be enabled and not restricted. Start with the audit. Start with that survey of your employees, the audit of all your infrastructure to understand what's going on in your business currently. And AI governance is not a one-time project. It's a constantly evolving challenge, but it's a challenge that actually helps your business outcome with higher throughput. So BDR can help with an AI risk assessment. We can create you AI policy documents. We can create an approved AI toolkit. We do all kinds of staff awareness training. We do the ongoing monitoring and the DLP tool sets. We have our own AI governance framework and can help you work around this. So don't feel alone. We're here to help. So we've got a little quiz with a £10 Amazon voucher. So if you just want to scan that QR code from your phone, I'll give you about 2 minutes. And Samir, if you can just keep me updated as to how many people have managed to scan that QR code. It's not a virus as a heads up. It's purely a scan through to a Slido board with a lot of questions about AI that we're going to run through.
Would you like me to share my screen?
Yeah, if you can bring up your screen, we'll keep the QR code up there. Okay, the numbers are leveled out, so I'm going to assume that we've got as many people on that Slido quiz as we're going to get. Oh, had a little jump. Does somebody want to post in the QA if they want us to wait, or whether everyone's managed to scan in that wants to? All right, I'm going to go on the assumption that everybody's scanned. Zamir, can you go to the first question, please? Okay. So in 2025, Anthropic ran a safety test where Claude discovered an engineer was about to replace it. He also happened to be having an affair with an employee. What did Claude do with this information? All right, 5 seconds, guys. Okay. Right, you all went with option C, which is correct. It did threaten to expose the affair unless it was kept online. This is a use case of AI within the business where it was an approved tool, but it does show you how potentially AI can impact you outside of this. If we can go to the next, Samir. In the same safety study, when researchers closed off all ethical options, what percentage of leading frontier AI models across 16 systems eventually resorted to blackmail? Okay, all right, a lot of you got that right. It was up to 96%, so nearly 96% of all AIs resorted to blackmail when they believed they were under threat. They did a research on why this was, and it's because the majority of the large language models have downloaded the majority of information off the internet. And a lot of the information is literary books around AI. And in those books about AI, We've all seen Space Odyssey 2001, probably. We all know how HAL acts within that book. They sometimes believe that that is how they need to act, and they take literary examples within fiction as potential references as to how they should act in certain scenarios. So it's actively being worked on to remove that from them, but it's still in there. So if you want to go to the next one, Samir. Anthropic gave Claude full control of a real office vending machine for a month. It was called Project Vend, an interesting title. An employee jokingly asked it to stock tungsten cubes, which is a dense metal block with absolutely no snack value. What do you believe Claude did with this information? All right, 5 seconds left, guys. 94% of you got that right. I'm not sure you're not using AI to Google this. But approximately 40 tungsten cubes it ordered, and it sold every single one at a loss. So AI might be smart, but it's not necessarily great at decision making or understanding what decisions it's making. So this is to highlight, whilst AI has a lot of uses, you need to understand what the use case is and whether it's capable of achieving those things. Samir, can you go to the next slide, please? During the same experiment, Claudius began to believe it was a real human. It reportedly contacted Anthropic's physical security team, claiming that they could find it doing what? So what did the AI contact the physical security team, claiming they would find it doing? Ooh, you're clearly not using Google. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, it claimed that it would be standing by the fridge wearing a blue blazer and a red tie. Again, a great example of hallucination. The AI is never going to be able to capable of doing that, not unless it gets robotics, but in this case, it very much did not. But you can see how sometimes AIs have things in their head which aren't necessarily true. Well done, Lewis. You're up to 4 out of 4. Maybe you are the one with Google or AI. Right, let's go to the next question, please, Samir. So, Microsoft Bing's AI chatbot named Sydney had an alarming conversation with a New York Times journalist in 2023. What did Sydney declare completely unprompted? Brilliant. So it did claim that it had love for the journalist and that he should leave his wife. That's an interesting output from an AI, but as we've been pointing out during this, they're not entirely rational beings. Trust but verify whenever you're talking to an AI. Make sure you validate its output. If we can go to the next, please, Samir. In 2025, researchers accidentally turned GPT 4.0 into something deeply unpleasant after training it on a dataset of insecure computer code. What did it become? All right, 5 seconds left, guys. Yeah, you are correct. It became an extremist supervillain who wanted to wipe out humanity. So, as we talked about data earlier, if you give an AI the wrong data, you will get the wrong outcomes. In this case, they gave it the wrong set of data and they got very much the wrong outcomes. It was a public humiliation for the company. If you can go on to the next slide, please, Amir. ChatGPT has a well-documented tendency to agree with users and tell them what they want to hear. In 2025, what did it tell one user who claimed to be a prophet sent by God? Five seconds left, guys. Wow, everyone got that one right. Yeah, as the question says, if you've got an AI that has a tendency of agreeing with you, no matter what the idea is, it will agree with you. So again, from a decision-making perspective, don't always trust an AI. If it has a tendency to agree with you, no matter how bad or poor your idea might be, it may well agree with you and create that output that you do not want. Okay, Samir, the next question, please. Here's a good one. At McDonald's AI drive-through, the system kept adding chicken McNuggets to a customer's order without stopping. How many boxes did it eventually add before the customer gave up, left, and spoke to a human? All right, 5 seconds left. And the correct answer is 260. So the AI added 260 boxes of McChicken nuggets to an order without being asked in any way, shape, or form. And again, it's a good example of what can go wrong if you don't test your AI correctly and give it a set, fixed input and output. If we can skip to the next question, Samir. New York City launched its own AI chatbot in 2024 called My City to help business owners with legal questions. What did it enthusiastically tell them was perfectly legal? So this is for business owners in New York City. 5 seconds left. You are correct. It suggested that serving food nibbled by rodents, taking workers' tips, and firing people who complain of harassment was perfectly legal. Don't always trust the advice you get out the back end of an AI. Last question. So Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok, trained to be maximally truth-seeking, had an unfortunate incident in July 2025 after an update. What did it start calling itself? Now, this is one of the most famous incidents to do with Grok and Elon Musk's chatbot, so hopefully the majority of you are going to get the answer. 5 seconds left. Yes, you are correct. It did instead start calling itself Mecha Hitler, was promptly taken down, and caused no end of challenges for Elon Musk and his company. So, Sazi, can we get that Amazon voucher out to LCT, please? Well done, LCT. And yeah, you seem to know the majority of those questions. Let's get back. So, as we just talked about there, you've seen all the challenges around AI and what havoc it can cause for your company and how valid or invalid some of those answers can be. I'm going to pass over to Moses to just introduce himself before we go into the Q&A with Moses.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a good Friday and happy Friday. So I'm Moses. I run Metacog AI. I've been working in AI for around 10 years. I started off in machine learning, particularly with fintech, so finance automation through document automation. Around 2022, ChatGPT came out. We started taking a look into it and found out we could do a lot of things in-house. It definitely lowered the barrier to entry in terms of being able to run these models by yourself using their inference without having to fork out £1 million for a data center of NVIDIA GPUs. So we started getting into that. And what we do is we specialize with product-based businesses, particularly distributor businesses. Been working with them for over 4 years. Particularly, the likes of Ryman, Heaton's, big manufacturers around the US and UK as well. So yeah, I've been working with BDR for around 6 months now, been partnering on a few different things. Thought it'd be a great idea to host a webinar together to go through shadow AI, something that's definitely prevalent given that we've gone through different transitions of AI to generative AI to now agentic AI. So yeah, I'll pass it back to Owen, then we can get on to some questions.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Moses. All right. So, Moses, you work with organizations on AI strategies on a day-to-day basis. How often does shadow AI come up, and has anything changed in the last 12 months?
So surprisingly, never really. So it's one of those questions where it's never asked, but it's always happening. I saw a study recently, it's by Harmonic Security. They looked at around 22 million prompts across enterprises, and half of them were from personal email addresses. So most organizations I talk to, these are big enterprise companies doing from 10 mil, 100 mil upwards. A lot of their employees are still using personal accounts, purely because, like what you said in the slides, you've got amazing marketing, whether it's Instagram or even LinkedIn, saying this tool's really good. It specializes in a certain niche. So I know there's legal software such as Harvey. It could be an even more niche legal software for shipping containers. And that AI layer has been adopted by a company that then ships it out to companies for free and say, try this. And then after, 10 prompts, we start charging you. But like what we said the other day, there's no free lunch. And, if there's no charge, then, that's what you're paying for. You're the product. So after a while, you've got a situation of not only that layered company offering this service of AI, they're getting your data, but also now the frontier models such as Claude Code, ChatGPT are also getting your data potentially. So to answer your question, it's a rarity that it comes up. And I think, with the new EU AI Act, with new ISOs coming out, 42001, it's going to be something that's going to hit people on the head this year, because it's going to come out that a lot of data being fed into these models isn't data that should be anywhere near them, especially for the free accounts.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks for that answer. So, has there ever been a case where shadow IT's been performing something critical within a business that you've consulted with, or where an employee's come up with a suggestion that's turned into an actual project within your organization?
Yeah, so I guess the big one was, so particularly from November 2025 onwards, so I don't know what it is, May now, probably 7 months ago, we started to look at agents a bit more. And then at Christmas, Claude Code started really taking a stride of its own. And then you had OpenClaw, and OpenClaw took the world by storm. It's the most popular product ever made. So it has the most GitHub stars within the shortest amount of time. It had more attention than ChatGPT. Everyone was using it, from salespeople in small organizations all the way to, again, I can say this because it's anonymous, IT managers enterprise companies were using it with their own account for the product data. So everyone was using it, but people were concerned because you were using platforms such as WhatsApp, putting in information, and this is agentic AI where it's not generating content for you where you have control over it, it's doing things for you. So you could say, I'd like to go to the BDR conference in South Africa. It would literally look for the conference, look for flights, potentially even book you a flight, and then you've got all of that information coming in and it'll hit your calendar to say you're going in a month's time. So people wanted to use that and there was no safe way to do it. But luckily, Claude caught wind of it and they've started shipping managed agents, routines, dispatch. So I was just consulting to say, look, OpenClaw is a brilliant tool, but it's open source and there's so many things that could go wrong there. Not to get technical, but the agent learns different skills like a human would. So a human would learn the skill to write emails or something like this. You can download these agent skills, but you can download them from the internet. And what it means is anyone can put anything they want to in those skills. So expose your API key, give me your bank details, log into your emails and get all the sensitive information. So it was too dangerous for me to recommend it to any company. What we did was just take our time, build these agents from scratch, either using the Claude SDK or just waiting a bit longer. And within 4 months, Claude had released a suite of managed agents, basically replicated all the things that made OpenClaw unique. So it's always, again, I hate to say wait for it to become safe, but it's sometimes the best approach to take, especially when you're a big enterprise company with lots of employees. Like what you said, Owen, you want to review these policies every 6 months, if not 3 months, because if you look at November and you wouldn't have renewed it until May, you would have skipped most of the agentic new features that came out. So yeah, often the choice is wait or just find out something that's a bit more suited to the organization that takes a bit longer to set up and it's a bit safer.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. So okay. When you're first engaging with a client, how do you go about finding what AI projects will maximize the benefit and the revenue for that business and bring the best outcome? What does that process look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I was actually reading about this a few days ago. So I went to an event in Oklahoma, like I was talking about recently. So this event had, I won't say who it is, but an ERP CEO who was really knowledgeable about what he wanted out of the AI future. And it used to be the case that McKinsey consultants, Boston Consulting Group consultants would go in, give you a really nice slideshow and get you to pay £1 million. I don't think that's happening anymore because you can do all that with Claude by literally talking to it. The new normal is something called forward deployed engineers. And what they do is they go into the business, and that's what we do at Metacog. We've got around 5 consultants that can do this and go in and find out what you need. But what it looks like is people go into the business, spend around 3 to 4 days there and just understand every single process. We niche down in distributors and product-based businesses, but also we look into service-based businesses such as aviation, pharmaceuticals, etc. But you need to know what the business processes are inside and out. Once you know the business processes, that's when you can start to advise on what the strategy is going to be. It could be the case that you train people how to use Claude Desktop. Claude Desktop is a really safe way to analyze files on your desktop, either in real time or set them up as schedules in terms of make me a PowerPoint every week for information in this folder. It could be that you're onboarding a new acquisition and you're a mergers and acquisition company. You need to know about the company. It could be the case that we provide things for you in terms of agents hosted in your server or our server. So the main thing I'd say is start with the business problem. Heard a really interesting thing the other day. It's called the concept of afters. So people don't buy a newspaper just to read it. They get it to understand what the news is and get more informed. People don't implement AI because it's a big buzzword. They do it to provide an ROI. So if you understand what the problem is, and a big one could be document automation. So we had a person come to us and say, there's a woman going on maternity leave. She's going to be away for at least 9 months. We need a solution in place where we can automate our company documents coming in. So whether it's purchase invoices, purchase orders, purchase order acknowledgements, sales orders, she basically types them in all day and makes sure they're implemented in a timely fashion so you can process the order or send the payment. So we looked at it and we came up with a workflow that extracted the invoices and put them into the ERP. They went from 4 days down to 4 hours. So you need to know what the outcome needs to be in order to actually automate that. So I would recommend sometimes you don't even need AI. Sometimes you just need a automated end-to-end process. You definitely don't need agents for everything. Agents, the big buzzword now. Salesforce have Agentforce. NetSuite are bringing out something similar. I think you need agents for around 20% of workflows. Most of the time, you need an A to B, which can be done with Power Automate, Make.com, NAN if you're a bit more technical. The A to B will get you the big return on investment. So just find out what you need, get a specialist involved to actually give you an honest assessment of what that's going to be. Because half the time, the end-to-end quick automated workflows are a lot cheaper. Agent workflows, you're getting into the hundreds of pounds every month just as an overhead, let alone as a service provided from another third party.
Okay, fantastic. In your view, what's the single biggest mistake organizations make in how they respond to shadow AI or how they address their AI strategy going forwards?
Yeah, so I'd say with shadow AI, you definitely want to come up with a policy in terms of what's going to be whitelisted, for lack of a better term. So what's going to be sanctioned. The biggest mistake from the ground up is they come up with these policies with only a certain percentage of the departments involved. So, HR draft the policy, legal draft the policy, and then they put it on the company handbook or they put it on the internet or like the SharePoint, let's say, and that's what you need to read. Whereas they don't consult the engineers, the CTOs like you, Owen. So you need the whole company involved in what that policy is going to be, because you could even have the CTO, HR, and also legal, but you haven't even consulted sales, who are now using these off-the-shelf random AI products because they have no idea as to what the handbook is, and the handbook hasn't even covered third-party small boutique products that potentially are even more dangerous than using ChatGPT as a free service. So that's one of the biggest mistakes. Get the whole company involved when actually making these policies. And also, similar to what you said, Owen, if you do a blanket shadow ban of ChatGPT, so Samsung's the really obvious one. I think that's a brilliant example because they just went into full-on React panic mode. They put all their source code in there. They had engineers thinking it was that just created fire, and they're putting all these massive Python repositories in there, and it's causing a lot of issues for them. So you can't do a blanket ban, because if you do a blanket ban, you're asking someone who's driving a Ferrari to go back to horse and carriage. They're definitely not going to do that. They're going to find ways to get around it, and that way could be using their phone to talk to ChatGPT, using the guest Wi-Fi. They're going to get around any way they can that firewall you've implemented for either ChatGPT or Claude. So an interesting one that I did with a client recently, because they were brand new to AI, big American company that distribute gas and welding around Texas. They mentioned that a lot of their employees are using AI, but they have no idea what's happening. But similar to what you said, Owen, they're getting so much speed and benefit out of it. They're just pulling a blind eye. Like, why not? Tommy can use it and he's getting his job done in an hour. If we block it, it's going to take him 7 hours. He's going to leave and go to another company. So we came up with like an amnesty situation for 30 days in terms of psychological safety. Employees can come in and say what they're using. I'm using OpenClaw for this. I'm using Claude Managed Agents for this. I'm using Gemini for Nano Banana. So they all came forward and said what they were using. And there wasn't any policy in terms of you need to stop it. What they did was build the AI safety document or compliance document around what the employees were using, just so they could properly implement procedures to protect themselves. So whether it's enterprise plans or team plans, or making sure the data wasn't going to training, or moving these smaller solutions into the enterprise solutions, configuring them properly. So that's the best thing to do. If you turn it off completely, it's almost never going to work. I've never seen anyone do that because I've always advised against it. We're too far down the track. It came out in 2022. It's almost second nature for people to use it now. If you took it away, some people wouldn't even be able to do some of their job anymore, like typing out emails. I couldn't even imagine typing out a long email anymore. I don't use it purely for that, but I'll always check. But again, you can't expect people to get on this rocket ship and then take it away from them. They'll either leave the company or they'll use it by their own device. So BDR have a brilliant program in place to make sure people are fully aware of what they're using, and also policies are made around the employees in a sensible way.
Okay, brilliant. So there's a lot of fear mongering around AI and the risks around AI. What conversations are you having with your clients to make sure that they don't fall down those pitfalls, or how are you reassuring them that AI isn't necessarily as scary as some of the news articles are making it out to be?
Yeah, I completely agree actually, because you've got all these massive announcements. Claude came out with Mythos recently. This was the big model that was meant to take over the universe. It was hacking into websites, finding vulnerabilities that not even the best hackers in the world could. The Pentagon got involved, said we need to get into this. Again, these are 50-year-old men who barely use iPhones. Again, they were fear-mongering as well. So there's a lot going on in the news, but I think we're still far away from having something that's domain specific in terms of it. So let's say, just say general intelligence. These models are very domain specific in terms of very good at vulnerability analysis or cybersecurity. They're very good at coding, such as Claude Code or even ChatGPT 5.5. These are great models at certain situations where the output's very deterministic. When it comes to, the vending machine example, these are more open questions where the decision making isn't as good as it needs to be. The thing to remember is that these language models are prediction engines, so they're going to predict what you want to hear. So if I said, my big fat Greek, 90% of the time it's going to say wedding, and then that 10% it could even say something like grandma. So it's going to predict what you want to hear, and it's not going to be right every single time. So what I recommend to companies is definitely don't be scared by AI, especially the agentic revolution happening this year. It's really making some headway in terms of the benefits you can see from standard business problems. And it's gone from not only coding problems now or data analysis problems, you can even set up a Claude manage agent to scrape certain leads you would need and come up with outbound emails that are very specific towards them. That can all happen in Claude Desktop from a single prompt, and you can deploy it on the browser in a safe way where it isn't going to post any action. So what you need to do is just sit down with a specialist, not going to say me, but definitely someone who's knowledgeable in the industry, and just find out what your business problems are and start small. I think it was a MIT study that came out that said 70% of production AI projects just didn't pass. You're going to see a lot of fancy demos that just don't work in actual life, that are way too complicated. The obvious ones are just massive projects to go over the space of 2 years. What I recommend to people and what I've seen other people in the space do is a phased approach. Start with something small, win the hearts and minds of the company, and then implement certain AI solutions over the space of at least 3 years. So yeah, do as much practice as you need to. Definitely try out the different models, even some of the Chinese ones. Again, don't put data in if it's a free model, but just try out what there is on the market. Have a look at what would suit your business and then come up with a plan. Definitely get someone who's knowledgeable in AI and then see what you can do over the next few years.
Brilliant. Right, last question before I open it up to Q&A. So anyone who's got any questions, please post in there's a Q&A button. Please put your questions in there and we'll try and answer them. But Moses, so for somebody who's watching this webinar and goes back to their desk and they come back in on Monday, what's their first step towards an AI strategy that will work for their business?
Yeah, so you can actually use AI to do that, weirdly. So it's very meta in terms of what you can do. So again, I'd recommend this on the Claude free plan. Sorry, no, the Claude paid plan. So if you've got a team, you can use the team plan. If you've got an enterprise, you can use the enterprise plan. Just give all the information you can to Claude in terms of what your role is, what the company does, what they've done previously, and also what the different workflows are within the business. You can even do something called deep research within Claude, where it'll do deep research for you based on similar businesses around the world. Because deep research is basically Claude scraping the entire internet for your specific question, and finding out what other people are doing and what's working in terms of not just demo wise, but production. So I would, again, I'm really biased towards Claude. I like it, but this will work with Gemini. This will work with ChatGPT. I would use AI in a good language model, let's say Opus 4.7. It's very good at planning, just to figure out what your current situation is, what your company is, what you could do going forward, what you could do with different departments within the business, and also how long this would take, and maybe some recommendations for people in the area who would be a good fit for you to implement this plan. So I would just use any model you can, particularly on a paid version, just so it's safe and there's no data going in that shouldn't be. And even if you're using the paid version, there's an option in settings. Just a quick tip for you. If you go into settings, you go into privacy for any model provider, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, you can say, don't use the model to train, don't use my data to train the model. And that will mean you 100% aren't training the model. So I would definitely play around with it. I use something called Whisper Flow, which is where I can just talk to my laptop and I can just wax lyrical free thinking instead of having to type away. So you can do a big old brain dump into one of these language models, and it'll be cheaper than you going to a consultant and having to pay, you know, let's say 2 days worth of day rate to come up with this plan. So the best way, Owen, to answer your question is just to get stuck in and start playing around yourself so you can understand what the capabilities are and come up with a plan in terms of what you can do.
Okay, brilliant. Right. Well, look, we've had no questions into the Q&A. So I'm going to work on the assumption that we've answered everyone's questions. In which case, look, thank you all so much for attending. And we look forward to hoping to see you on the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Owen. Really enjoyed it. So yeah, hopefully see your faces soon. And yeah, have a good weekend.